Questions. Many of us grow up believing that a good person is someone who is always available, always helpful, always sacrificing. We admire people who say yes even when they are exhausted. Questions. Who adjust even when it hurts, who keep smiling even when they are breaking inside. Slowly, without realizing it, we start believing that being good means ignoring ourselves. And then one day, questions. We feel tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. We feel irritated without knowing why. We feel disconnected from life, from people, sometimes even from ourselves. Questions. And that's when this truth becomes important. Putting yourself first is not selfish, it is sustainable. Think of your daily life. Imagine your phone. You use it for calls, messages, work, questions, entertainment, navigation, everything. Now imagine never charging it because you feel guilty. Questions. What if someone needs to call me? What if I miss something important? So you keep using it at 5%, then 2%, then 1%. Eventually, the phone shuts down. Not because it was bad questions, but because it was never recharged. No one calls the phone selfish for charging itself. In fact, charging it is the only way it can be useful again. Human beings are no different. Questions. When you constantly put others first, you may feel noble in the beginning. You feel needed. You feel valued. But over time, that constant giving without replenishing starts to cost you. Questions. You start helping from obligation, not from love. You start listening without patience. You start smiling mechanically. And the worst part, you start resenting the very people you care about. Questions. Not because they are bad, but because you abandoned yourself for too long. Sustainability means you can keep showing up without losing yourself. Questions. And that only happens when you include yourself in your care. Let's take a simple example. A mother who never rests, who eats last, who ignores her health. Questions. Who suppresses her emotions. Society praises her. Such a great sacrifice, they say. But what happens when she falls sick? The whole system collapses. Her sacrifice was not wrong. Questions. But it was incomplete. Because real care is not about burning yourself out. It's about being well enough to love consistently. Putting yourself first does not mean loving others less. Questions. It means loving them longer. Selfishness is when you harm others for your benefit. Sustainability is when you take care of yourself so that you don't harm anyone, including yourself. Questions. There is a big difference. A selfish person says, only I matter. A sustainable person says, I matter too. One comes from ego, the other comes from wisdom. In daily life, questions. This shows up in small choices. Going to bed on time instead of scrolling endlessly because you feel you should reply to everyone. Saying questions. I'll get back to you tomorrow, instead of forcing yourself to be available at midnight. Choosing to rest on Sunday, instead of attending every gathering out of guilt. Questions. These are not dramatic acts of rebellion. They are quiet acts of self-respect. And self-respect creates inner stability. When you don't put yourself first. Questions. Your kindness becomes conditional on your energy levels. Some days you're sweet, some days you're sharp. Some days you give generously. Some days you withdraw completely. Questions. People around you get confused and you get frustrated. Sustainability means your behavior is steady because your inner resources are taken care of. You become calmer, not colder. Kinder, not weaker. Questions. There is also a deep emotional reason why people struggle with this. Many of us are afraid that if we put ourselves first, people will leave. But here's the truth. Questions. People who only stay when you are overgiving are not attached to you. They are attached to your availability. When you start valuing yourself, some people may resist. That doesn't mean you are wrong. Questions. It means the relationship was dependent on your self-neglect. Sustainability sometimes requires uncomfortable adjustments. Think about work life. An employee who never takes leave, never says no. Questions. Never switches off our office hours may look dedicated. But over time, performance drops, Creativity fades, mistakes increase. Burnout follows. Questions. The organization doesn't benefit from that in the long run. The most effective people are not the ones who work endlessly. They are the ones who know when to pause. Pauses are not weakness. Questions. They are maintenance. Putting yourself first also teaches others how to treat you. When you respect your time, people value it. When you honor your limits, people adjust. And if they don't, questions, you gain clarity. Sustainability is not about pleasing everyone today, it's about being whole tomorrow. At the end of the day, life is not a sprint where you give everything at once and collapse. Questions. It's a marathon. And in a marathon, pacing yourself is not selfish. It's intelligent. You don't stop caring about others when you put yourself first. You stop abandoning yourself. Questions. And when you stop abandoning yourself, the love you give becomes lighter, purer, and more real. So remember this in your daily life: taking care of yourself is not stepping away from responsibility. Questions. It is taking responsibility for your energy, your peace, and your future. Because the world doesn't need more burnt out good people. It needs healthy, grounded, emotionally present human beings. Questions. And that starts with you choosing yourself, not occasionally, not dramatically, but consistently. Questions. There is a quiet exhaustion that many people carry every day. It doesn't always show on the face, but it shows in the tone, the patience, the enthusiasm for life. People say, questions, I don't know what's wrong, I'm just tired. The truth is simple and uncomfortable at the same time. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Questions. Yet most of us are trying to do exactly that. Give love, support, time, attention, and energy when we have nothing left inside. Picture a normal day. Questions. You wake up already thinking about responsibilities. You rush through the morning, handle work pressure, respond to messages, solve other people's problems, meet expectations. Questions. Manage emotions, yours and everyone else's. By evening, your body is present, but your mind is drained. Still, someone needs something from you, and you say yes. Not because you have energy. Questions. But because you don't want to disappoint. Slowly your cup runs dry, and then we wonder why even small things start irritating us. Imagine a water bottle. Questions. You keep filling glasses for everyone around you, but no one refills the bottle. At some point, the bottle becomes empty. When someone asks for water, then questions. It's not that you don't want to give, you simply can't. And if you keep forcing yourself, all you'll pour is air. That's what happens emotionally when we don't take care of ourselves. Questions. Our words lose warmth, our actions lose sincerity, our presence loses life. Many people confuse exhaustion with laziness. They think, questions, I should be able to handle this. But exhaustion is not a character flaw, it's a signal. Just like hunger tells you to eat, emotional and mental tiredness tells you to pause. Questions. Ignoring it doesn't make you strong, it makes you depleted. And depleted people don't show up as their best selves, even when they try. Look at relationships. When you are rested, fulfilled, questions, and emotionally okay, you listen better, you respond, not react. You forgive easily, you laugh genuinely. But when your cup is empty, every conversation feels heavy. Every request feels like a burden. Questions. Even love starts to feel like pressure. That's not because love is difficult. It's because you are running on empty. A common example is the always strong person in the family. Questions. The one who supports everyone, solves problems, stays calm in chaos. People admire them, but rarely do they ask, who is taking care of you? Strength without refilling leads to silent burnout. Questions. One day that strong person either breaks down or shuts down, not because they are weak, but because they were never allowed to rest. Think about your phone again. When the battery is low, questions, it doesn't stop working immediately. It goes into power saving mode, brightness reduces, background apps close, performance slows. Humans do the same. When our energy is low, questions, we go into emotional power saving mode. We stop expressing, we stop feeling deeply. We stop dreaming. We function, but we don't feel alive. Questions. And living like that for long periods makes life feel dull and heavy. Daily self-care is not about luxury, it's about maintenance. Just like you eat every day, sleep every day, questions, and breathe every moment, emotional refilling also needs regular attention. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a walk. Sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's crying. Questions. Sometimes it's doing nothing. These moments refill the cup quietly, but powerfully. People often say, I'll rest later, after this phase. But life doesn't have pauses like that. Questions. There will always be another task, another responsibility, another demand. If you keep postponing refilling your cup, emptiness becomes your normal. And when emptiness becomes normal, questions, irritation becomes your personality. That's how good people turn bitter. Not because they changed, but because they were drained for too long. Questions. It's also important to understand that refilling your cup is your responsibility. Others may help, but you cannot outsource self-care. If you wait for someone to notice that you are tired, questions, you may wait a long time. People are busy managing their own cups. This is not a sad truth. It's a practical one. Awareness of your own needs is maturity. When you start refilling your cup, questions, something beautiful happens. Your giving becomes joyful again. You help because you want to, not because you have to. You listen without checking the clock. You show up without resentment. Questions. And even when you say no, you do it calmly, without guilt. That's the magic of fullness. Remember, an empty cup doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone you care about. Questions. Because they don't get the real you, they get the exhausted version of you. Taking care of yourself is not withdrawing from the world. It is preparing yourself to engage with in a healthier way. Questions. So pause and ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you refilled your cup? Not for productivity, not for others, just for you. Because the world doesn't need more drained helpers. Questions. It needs people who give from overflow, not from emptiness. And that begins with honoring a simple truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Questions. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that self-care is something extra. Something you do only when all work is done. When everyone else is taken care of. When time magically appears. Questions. We see self-care as a reward, not a requirement. So we postpone it. I'll rest after this project. I'll focus on myself once things settle down. But life doesn't really settle down. Questions. Does it? Responsibilities change shape, pressure changes faces, but the demand never fully disappears. That's why it's important to understand this simple truth: self-care is not a luxury. Questions. It is a responsibility. Look at daily life. You don't say, I'll brush my teeth only when I have free time. You don't say, questions, I'll eat food only when I feel less busy. These things are non-negotiable because you know the consequences of neglecting them. Self-care works the same way. Questions. But because its damage is invisible at first, we underestimate it. You don't see emotional cavities immediately. You don't notice mental fatigue in one day. It builds quietly. Questions. And one day it shows up as burnout, anxiety, anger, or complete loss of motivation. Many people think self-care means expensive vacations, spa days, or long breaks. That's just one small part. Questions. And honestly, that's the Instagram version. Real self-care is much more ordinary and much more powerful. It's going to bed when your body is tired, not when your phone battery dies. Questions. It's eating properly instead of surviving on snacks and caffeine. It's taking a break without feeling guilty. It's choosing peace over proving a point. None of these things look glamorous. Questions. But they keep you functional, stable, and emotionally available. Think of a vehicle. You may love your car, but if you never service it, never change the oil, Never check the brakes. Questions. One day it will break down in the middle of the road, and then the repair will cost more time, more money, and more stress than regular maintenance ever would. Questions. Self-care is emotional and mental maintenance. Ignoring it doesn't save time, it creates future damage. In families, you often see people who are always available. They cook, clean, earn support. Questions. Advise and sacrifice. But when they finally say, "I'm tired," people are surprised. "But you always manage," they say. Questions. What they don't realize is that managing without caring for yourself is slowly emptying your reserves. Responsibility doesn't mean doing everything. Questions. It means doing what allows you to continue without breaking. There's also a strange guilt attached to self-care. When someone rests, they feel the need to explain. Questions. When someone takes time for themselves, they feel selfish. But when you don't take care of yourself and end up sick or emotionally unstable, everyone suffers. You suffer. Your family suffers. Questions. Your work suffers. Self-care prevents that. It's not about indulgence, it's about prevention. Even emotionally, self-care matters. If you never process your feelings, questions, they don't disappear, they pile up. Unexpressed stress turns into irritability. Unspoken sadness turns into numbness. Ignored anger turns into passive aggression. Questions. Self-care means acknowledging what you feel instead of pushing it down because you think you're strong enough to handle it later. Strength is not suppression. Strength is awareness. Questions. In work culture, self-care is often misunderstood. People glorify overworking. Long hours are seen as commitment. Rest is seen as laziness. Questions. But the most effective professionals are not the most exhausted ones. They are the most balanced ones. Creativity, focus, and patience don't come from pressure. They come from clarity. Questions. And clarity comes when the mind is taken care of. A simple daily example: saying no. Saying no is self-care. Not answering every call immediately is self-care. Questions. Choosing not to engage in unnecessary drama is self-care. These are not acts of rebellion, they are acts of responsibility. Questions. You are protecting your mental space so that you can show up better where it truly matters. When you treat self-care as a luxury, you wait for permission. When you treat it as a responsibility, questions, you create boundaries. You stop apologizing for resting. You stop justifying your need for space. You understand that your well-being is not optional, it's foundational. Questions. People who practice self-care are not less caring, they are more consistent. They don't help in bursts and disappear. They don't give everything today and resent tomorrow. Questions. They have the emotional capacity to be present again and again. That's what responsibility looks like. Not dramatic sacrifice, but steady availability. At the end of the day, your body, mind, questions, and emotions are the instruments through which you live your life. If you don't maintain the instrument, the music will suffer. Taking care of yourself is not running away from life. Questions. It is preparing yourself to live it fully. So stop waiting for the right time to rest, to pause, to take care. The right time is now, in small ways, every day. Questions. Because self-care is not a luxury you earn after exhaustion. It is a responsibility you honor so exhaustion doesn't take over. Questions. For many people, the word boundaries feels uncomfortable. It sounds harsh, distant, even selfish. We fear that if we set boundaries, people will misunderstand us, feel hurt, or walk away. Questions. So instead of being honest, we stay silent, we adjust, we tolerate, we overgive, and slowly the relationship that we were trying so hard to protect starts feeling heavy. Questions. That's the irony. The very thing we avoid to save relationships is often what damages them. Boundaries don't ruin relationships, they protect them. Think about daily life. Questions. Imagine you invite someone into your home. If there are no rules at all, they come anytime, use anything, stay as long as they want. Sooner or later, questions. You will feel uncomfortable in your own space. not because the guest is bad, but because there is no structure. Boundaries in relationships work the same way. They define what is okay and what is not. Questions, so that respect can exist naturally. When you don't set boundaries, small discomforts build up silently. Someone interrupts your rest repeatedly. Someone makes jokes that hurt but you laugh along. Questions. Someone expects immediate replies even late at night. You tell yourself, it's okay, I'll manage. But inside, irritation starts growing. One day, that irritation explodes over something small. Questions. And the other person is shocked. You never said anything before. They say, that's the cost of unspoken boundaries. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. Questions. They are guidelines that help people know how to love you properly. When you communicate your limits calmly and clearly, you give others a chance to respect you. Questions. Many conflicts don't happen because people are cruel. They happen because people don't know where the line is. Look at work-life. Questions. An employee who never sets boundaries becomes the go-to person for everything. Extra work, late calls, last-minute requests. At first it feels good to be needed. But over time, exhaustion sets in. Questions. Quality drops. Resentment grows. Eventually, the relationship with work turns bitter. But an employee who communicates availability, workload, questions, and limits is not less committed. They are more sustainable. Boundaries make professionalism possible. In close relationships, boundaries are even more important. Questions. Love without boundaries becomes suffocating. Care without limits becomes control. Giving without balance becomes dependency. Healthy relationships allow space. They allow individuality. Questions. They allow honesty without fear. When boundaries are respected, love feels safe, not draining. Many people fear that saying no will make them look rude. Questions. But saying yes when you mean no doesn't make you kind. It makes you dishonest with yourself. Boundaries allow you to say yes genuinely. When you agree to something after honoring your limits. Questions. Your energy is real. Your presence is full. That's what people actually want from you. Not forced availability, but authentic connection. Questions. A common misunderstanding is that boundaries push people away. In reality, they filter relationships. Those who respect your boundaries often grow closer to you because there is clarity and trust. Questions. Those who repeatedly violate your boundaries reveal something important. Not about your weakness, but about their expectations. Boundaries don't create distance. Questions. They reveal where distance already existed. Think about children. Parents who set healthy boundaries don't love their children less. They teach them safety, respect, and discipline. Questions. A child with no boundaries doesn't feel free. They feel insecure. Adults are no different. Clear boundaries create emotional safety. People know what to expect. They know where they stand. Questions. Another daily example is time. Your time is a boundary. If you say yes to everything, your schedule fills with other people's priorities. And then you wonder why you have no time for yourself. Questions. Protecting your time is not selfish, it's respectful. When you value your time, others learn to value it too. Boundaries also protect you from burnout. When you don't know where to stop. Questions. Your body eventually stops you through stress, illness, or emotional shutdown. Boundaries are a way of listening to your limits before your body screams. They are an act of self-awareness. Questions, not self-centeredness. It's important to remember that setting boundaries doesn't always feel comfortable at first. You may feel guilty. You may feel anxious. Questions. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something new. Growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. Healthy people respect boundaries. Questions. Unhealthy dynamics resist them. That's not your responsibility to fix. Your responsibility is to communicate clearly and kindly. How others respond is information, not something you need to control. Questions. At the heart of it, boundaries allow relationships to breathe. They prevent resentment from building. They keep love from turning into obligation. Questions. They protect both sides, your well-being and the connection itself. So if you truly value your relationships, don't avoid boundaries. Use them. Speak them gently. Enforce them consistently. Questions. Because the strongest relationships are not built on silent sacrifice, but on mutual respect. And respect grows best where boundaries are clear. Questions. Guilt is one of the most misunderstood emotions in our lives. The moment we feel guilty, we assume we have done something wrong. We start questioning ourselves, doubting our intentions, questions, and sometimes even punishing ourselves internally. But here's a gentle truth that can change how you see your inner world. Guilt is often a sign of growth. Not all guilt means you are wrong. Questions. Sometimes it means you are changing. Think about the first time you said no to something you always said yes to before. Maybe it was staying late at work. Maybe it was lending money. Questions. Maybe it was answering calls at odd hours. The moment you said no, did you feel peaceful immediately? Most likely not. You felt uncomfortable. You felt restless. You felt guilty. Questions. But did you do something wrong? Or did you simply step out of an old pattern that no longer served you? Guilt often appears when we break habits that were built to please others. For years, questions. You might have been the always available person. People got used to that version of you. You got used to that version of yourself. When you start changing, your mind sends you guilt as an alarm. Questions. This is unfamiliar. Go back to what feels safe. But safe doesn't always mean healthy. Imagine you've been carrying a heavy bag for years. At first it feels normal. Your body adapts. One day, questions, you finally put the bag down. Suddenly you feel strange. Your shoulders feel light, but your mind feels uneasy. That uneasiness is not because the bag was good for you. Questions. It's because your body had normalized the weight. Guilt works the same way. It's the emotional echo of old conditioning. In daily life, guilt shows up when you choose yourself. Questions. You take a day off and feel guilty for resting. You don't reply immediately and feel guilty for having boundaries. Questions. You spend money on something for yourself and feel guilty for not saving it for something more important. But ask yourself honestly, who decided that your rest, your time, questions, and your joy are less important? Many of us were taught that being good means being self-sacrificing. So when we stop sacrificing, guilt shows up. Not because we are bad, but because we are unlearning. Questions. Growth is uncomfortable because it challenges beliefs we never questioned before. Guilt is part of that discomfort. Consider relationships. When you stop tolerating disrespect, questions, the guilt can be intense. You think, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I should adjust. But often, questions, the guilt is not about hurting someone. It's about breaking a pattern where your needs were always secondary. Questions. Choosing dignity over approval feels wrong at first when you've been trained to prioritize harmony over honesty. There's also a difference between healthy guilt and conditioned guilt. Questions. Healthy guilt guides you when you truly hurt someone or cross your own values. Conditioned guilt appears when you stop meeting unrealistic expectations. Questions. Learning to tell the difference is a sign of emotional maturity. Growth teaches you to pause and ask, did I actually do something wrong? Questions. Or do I just feel uncomfortable because I'm changing? A very common example is rest. You sit down to do nothing, and suddenly your mind starts racing. Questions. I should be doing something productive. That guilt has nothing to do with responsibility. It comes from a belief that your worth depends on output. When you challenge that belief by resting, questions, guilt shows up, not to guide you, but to test you. Even in family dynamics, guilt plays a big role. When you stop agreeing with everything, when you voice a different opinion, questions, when you choose a different path, guilt can feel overwhelming. You love them, you respect them, but you are also becoming your own person. That transition is rarely smooth. Questions. Guilt is often the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. It's important to understand that growth doesn't always feel empowering in the moment. Sometimes it feels lonely. Questions. Sometimes it feels confusing. Sometimes it feels like you're doing something wrong, even when you're doing something right. That's where self-compassion matters. Instead of fighting guilt, questions, observe it. Ask it what it's trying to tell you. Often it's saying, you are stepping outside an old version of yourself, or over time something interesting happens. The guilt fades. Questions. What felt uncomfortable becomes normal. What felt selfish becomes balanced. What felt wrong starts feeling peaceful. That's how you know it was growth, not wrongdoing. Questions. So the next time guilt shows up after you set a boundary, take rest, say no or choose yourself. Don't rush to undo your decision. Pause. Reflect. Questions. See if that guilt is truly about harm, or if it's simply the growing pain of becoming healthier. Growth doesn't come with a loud celebration. It often comes quietly, with a little guilt, questions, a little fear, and a lot of courage. And if you're feeling guilty while choosing what's right for you, remember this. Questions. Sometimes guilt is not a warning sign. It's a confirmation that you are growing beyond old limits. Questions. For many people, the word no feels heavier than it actually is. It gets stuck in the throat. It comes with explanations, apologies, and guilt. Questions. We say yes even when every part of us wants to say no. Not because we have the time or energy, but because we fear disappointing others, being misunderstood, or losing approval. Slowly, questions. That habit of saying yes to everything turns into a habit of saying no to ourselves. And that's where this truth becomes important. Questions. Saying no is not rejection, it is saying yes to yourself. Think about your daily schedule. Every yes you say takes time, energy, and attention. Those resources are limited. Questions. When you say yes to something that drains you, you are automatically saying no to rest, peace, or something that truly matters to you. Time doesn't disappear, it gets redistributed. Questions. Saying no is simply choosing where your energy goes. A simple daily example is someone asks you to attend a gathering when you're already exhausted. You say yes out of politeness. You go. Questions. But you're not present. You're checking the time, feeling irritated, wishing you were home. Did your yes actually help the relationship? Or would an honest no, said kindly, have been healthier? Questions. When you say no with clarity, you protect both your energy and the authenticity of the connection. Many people worry that saying no will make them look selfish. Questions. But constantly saying yes creates a false version of you. One who is always available, always adjusting. When you suddenly can't keep up, people feel confused. Saying no early, respectfully, questions, creates honest expectations. It teaches people how to interact with you realistically. Look at work life. If you say yes to every task, your workload becomes unmanageable. Quality drops. Questions. Stress increases. You start resenting your job. But when you say no, or at least negotiate, you protect your focus. You deliver better work. You stay mentally healthier. Questions. Saying no doesn't make you less committed, it makes you more effective. In relationships, saying no is essential for emotional balance. Questions. When you say yes to things that cross your comfort zone repeatedly, you disconnect from your own feelings. Over time, you may feel unheard, not because others ignored you. Questions. But because you never spoke up. Saying no is how you include yourself in the relationship. There's also a myth that saying no requires justification. It doesn't. Questions. You don't owe everyone a detailed explanation of your limits. A simple, calm no is enough. Over-explaining often comes from guilt, not clarity. When you are clear within yourself, questions, your no becomes gentle instead of defensive. Saying no also builds self-trust. Every time you listen to your inner voice and honor it, You strengthen your relationship with yourself. Questions. You start believing that your needs matter. And when you trust yourself, decision making becomes easier. You stop constantly seeking external validation. Think about children again. Questions. A child who is never allowed to say no grows up confused about consent and boundaries. Adults are no different. Learning to say no is learning to respect your own limits. It's not about being rigid. Questions. It's about being aware. At first, saying no feels uncomfortable. Your heart may race. Your mind may replay the conversation. That discomfort doesn't mean you did something wrong. Questions. It means you're breaking an old pattern. Growth often feels awkward before it feels natural. Over time, something beautiful happens. People start respecting your no. Some may resist. Questions, but many will adjust. And most importantly, you start respecting yourself. Your yes becomes more meaningful because it's no longer automatic. It's intentional. Saying no doesn't close doors. Questions. It redirects energy. It creates space for what truly matters. It allows you to show up fully where you choose to be. It turns your life from reactive to intentional. Questions. So the next time you feel pressured to say yes, pause. Ask yourself, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Your answer will guide you. Questions. Because every no you say with honesty is a yes to your peace, your health, and your growth.